In today's show, we're ranking every Trailblazers player by their trade value. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen and tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we are running back something that is not mine, but I've done before. We are ranking every Blazers player on the roster by their trade value. This harkens back to the Bill Simmons at page 2 days when he would do these massive trade value columns for every player in the league, or ostensibly every player in the league, but these massive page 2 columns written on the yellow background back in the day. I can't tell you if Bill still does this. I'm not a regular enough listener to his program, but this is certainly stolen from Bill Simmons way back in the day. I have done this a couple times over the years on the podcast, most recently last December. That's December of last season, December of 2023. The team is largely the same, but different enough, and the context is different enough, and I think while maybe some of the conclusions will be similar if you remember a podcast episode from 13 months ago. It is interesting as we are now weeks out from the trade deadline to sort of revisit what are the Blazers' most valuable assets in terms of trade value. That's what we're going to get into today. A couple things here. I don't expect a bunch of trade action. We're weeks away. It's February 6th, the trade deadline. Weeks. But most of typically in any NBA season, it is the week, the days, and then the freaking hours before the deadline is when action happens. I think there is some skepticism from folks who cover the league and about how much action there will be, and I think maybe some of the big stars and the Jimmy Butlers and Brandon Ingrams and Zach LaVines might not end up getting dealt, but there could indeed be some action. I don't expect the Blazers to make big splashes, but boy, do I hope I'm wrong about that for the sake of the franchise and, the sake of the pod, baby. But what I'm attempting to do here is not talk about the players on-court production necessarily, although obviously that goes into it. But trade value is oftentimes your contract, how much you're being paid, because what teams are trading for is your contract, either its value in and of itself or how many years it has on it, or the size of the contract matters absolutely when other teams are making decisions, and sort of where other teams are. In general, I'm thinking about this as teams that are good trading for these Blazers players, but I'm trying to make this agnostic of would they help a playoff team, because that's not exactly what I'm trying to answer here. Would they be valued in a trade broadly across the league is what we're trying to answer. Okay, let's get into it. I'm gonna go worst to first here. This is a new name at the bottom of the list, and I think this is I've just changed my opinion here in terms of trade value over the last, year or so than where I have been in the past. But I think the player with the least trade value on the Blazers roster right now is DeAndre Ayton. It's just the nature of the beast. He's making $35 million. He's having one of, if not the worst seasons of his career production-wise in terms of offensive production. Shooting pretty well on twos, but he's not getting to the free throw line. He's not scoring it at a volume that he has in the past. Some of that is maybe roll and all of those things, but Hayden's got to be able to snatch a roll at some point like that. That's on him to figure out where, get in where you fit in. The scoring is down. Rebounding's about the same. I think he's had his moments on defense. He's had his moments when he's really not any good on defense. But he just doesn't produce like someone making $35 million. And moreover, the NBA doesn't value centers like that. The thing that NBA teams value at center is high level rim protection and or maybe like floor stretching, kind of bending the offense, bending, the way the defense has to guard you with some, but with some shooting. But I think more first and foremost, it's the rim protection. That's not what DA does. That is not his skill set. He's a scorer, and he hasn't, like, his best skill on offense his best skill as a center is offensively, and he hasn't really been that this year. And he's making $35 million. He's probably just because of the amount that Rob Williams is capable of playing and Aiden's individual offense. You can make a case that he's the Blazers' most productive center. For me, he's not their best, but the most productive center. But the contract and another year out on it, and what he would, what value does he bring to both really good teams and teams that are rebuilding? DeAndre Ayton, I think, has the least trade value of anyone on the roster. I think you would have to. I think what people like to term negative value, meaning you would likely have to attach some value to it. I mean, look what he got traded for. Yusuf Nurkic, who the Suns have basically benched and are begging to now trade. Nazir Little, who didn't stick in Phoenix. Keon Johnson, who didn't stick in Phoenix, and Grayson Allen. It's not like he had a ton of trade value when he arrived in Portland from Phoenix, and I am very hard pressed to say that his value has gone anywhere up. If the best you could say is it's remained flat, and I'm not even sure that is necessarily true. DeAndre Ayton's at the bottom of my list. The next is like a tier of guys that I just I think the like sheer ranking of them, or just like the straight up numerical ranking of them, is less important to me than like this is about the same tier of folks. You could move any of these guys in any direction, and I would probably agree with you. Next on my list is Jabari Walker. He's just a guy in between positions. He's not making a ton of money, so that's not that big of a deal, but he doesn't have much standalone appeal. He's kind of a center trapped in a small forward's body. He's like a 4 if there were 4s in the league, and if he could shoot a little bit better and handle a little bit better, I think he would get there. I like Jabari Walker. I think he's a fun personality, and I like the way he plays. It's just like he's a big, like his position is big man, and he happens to be like 6'7". It's just he's not. That's a tough position to sort of make it in the league, and I think certainly he hasn't got a ton of opportunity to, but it's not like he has smashed through that sort of his situation and demanded some more opportunity this year. Jabari Walker is the next name on my list. Then followed by that is Delano Banton. I think probably Blazer fans are higher, like the average Blazer fan. There's thousands of you, and people feel different ways about different things. I think the average Blazer fan, like sort of on aggregate that I talk to, is probably higher on Delano Banton than I am. I like his style. Dude shoots when he gets the ball. He's going to get him up. I don't think what his skill set has a ton of trade value. He's probably more productive just like playing the role he has for the Blazers than them trying to shop him. He's the next name on my list, followed by Ryan Rupert. I want Rupert to be more intriguing, and I understand some folks watch him and are more intrigued. I don't really. I just see a guy who hasn't quite put it together yet. I wish he got more opportunity. I wish we just had more data on him. Like I feel like it doesn't really make sense where the Blazers are right now that we don't get to see Ryan Rupert play, say, 25 minutes each week. But that's not exactly a big ask when you go to work 4 times. But we don't, and when I've watched him this year, I am not deeply intrigued, and I don't think, and even my opinion alone, it's like I don't think Ryan Rupert in and of himself has a bunch of standalone value, although he could be intriguing to the right team because he's a flyer type, right? He's a flyer type, or he's a sweetener in another deal, and this is kind of what this group is. It's like if you need sweeteners, what flavor of minimum contract are you into? Do you want like a sort of like gritty hustle rebound, undersized center guy in Jabari Walker? Do you want a go try to score, big wing ball handler, a type in Delano Banton? Do you want this sort of 3-and-D potential youngster in Ryan Rupert who's super young and could grow into things like that? That's my next tier. Then there's a name in a group by himself. Duop Reith. There's some reporting that I shared here on the show from Jake Fisher a few weeks, probably early December, maybe a month ago, from Jake Fisher on the Stein Line about how when this year, because of the new sort of restrictive part of the CBA, the new restrictive punitive measures in the CBA is that trading minimums might be in fashion more than it had been in the past. And whereas in the past, guys like Walker and Banton and Rupert were sweeteners, there are now like teams like Phoenix or Minnesota, teams, Boston, teams that are well over the cap, that what can they do, and well over the second apron. There's like so few actionable moves they can make to improve or change their team. But one of the things you can do is acquire and trade for minimums. And from early December until the trade deadline, you can add more minimum guys into the trade. You don't need to do anything funky. You can just you can stack minimum dudes in there, and they can take on more minimum guys, and that would allow for some movement. And there's been some reporting, starting with Jake Fisher at the Stein line, and then as recently to today, that there are teams that are interested, including the Phoenix Suns, in Duop-Reath's services. Interesting, kind of like, hey, we need a big who can shoot type of center, and this is going to be very cheap. It'll cost a deep second rounder or something like that to acquire Duop-Reath. I would assume. That was my guess on what a Duop-Reath type of trade would be. Could it be multiple seconds? I think the Blazers have to jump on that if you could trade Duop-Reath for multiple seconds, just considering where they are and what they've invested in the rest of the center position. Duop-Reath is above these other guys because the positional need is a little bit bigger, and because of the shooting theoretically. And you know what? One thing that Duop-Reath is going to do when he gets in the game is he's going to shoot a lot. If I enjoy the Delano Banton trying to get to the rim at all costs, I really enjoy Duop-Reath firing up 8 threes in a 3-minute stretch in garbage time. My dude knows why he made it to the league. He's going to show you every opportunity he gets. Reath is in a tier by himself. Ayton, Walker, Banton, Rupert, Reath in a separate tier. That's where I'm at. Let's talk about the middle tier and more Blazers trade value in the second segment. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you about WayFair. We've reached the new year, and perhaps you're looking for a little home redesign, a little TLC, a little decluttering, or refreshing your spaces inside your house to help you get back into a routine. Well, if tidying up and whether you're tidying up or you're clearing out, or you just want to give, you want to get a new end table for your bedroom, WayFair has everything you need, all within your budget. What you're going to love about it is they got a huge selection, and it's easy to find pieces that are going to fit your style and, like I said, and your budget. Plus, they got free and hassle-free delivery, even for larger items. And WayFair's site is so easy to navigate. You can find everything you need in no time. So if you are looking for the right piece of furniture, a new piece of furniture, a way to organize things you already have, why not check out WayFair? Give your home a refresh it needs with WayFair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WayFair.com. WayFair. Every style, every home. Today's show is also brought to you by the good folks over at Game Time. They're trying to help you out. They're trying to get you to live events, whether that's sports, whether that's comedy, whether that's theater, whether that's your favorite musician that's playing in your city just one night. Go make a memory and get tickets the easy way with Game Time. They've got the Game Time Picks feature that filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. Just search what you want to go to on your phone. The venue's going to pull right up there on their super easy to use app. And then throughout the venue, you'll see their curated Game Time picks. Whether you want to sit super close, a little further back, or somewhere in the middle, they've got great deals to help you save money. Plus, if you toggle in the all-in pricing, it shows you the total upfront cost, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. And if you're curious about what your seat might look like, they've got the 360 panoramic view from your seat that you can click on and take a look at before you purchase anything. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the redemption code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right. Let's talk some more Blazers trade value rankings. If you have your own rankings and you're a YouTube viewer, you can leave them below in the comments section. You can email me, lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com. Support the show by interacting with it, even if you disagree with some of my takes here. As we continue on, the next name on my list in terms of Blazers trade value is Chris Murray. Murray is playing the best basketball of his career over the last 2 weeks. It is not this massive jump into highly productive 3-and-D wing, but it is like, yeah, that dude can guard. He's a pretty good cutter. He's a good offensive rebounder. Like he's strong. Like he can, it's just how he's going to score consistently on offense remains a question. But I think like if there's a team that could use someone about his size, 6'8", who can defend, it's easier to talk yourself into someone who's had a little bit of like productive on the court tape as Murray. I don't think he has a ton of trade value. Like I don't think you're going to flip Chris Murray for a first round pick, pretty obviously. But like, I think if you are talking bigger trades and talking deals, that I think Murray is probably likely a cut above the youngsters, although I can see a team being more interested in the youth of Ryan Rupert than Chris Murray. So like, again, like the rankings, these are my rough estimates. I would probably rank Chris Murray, but I could see a world in which Ryan Rupert would be higher on the list. The next name on my list is Matisse Thybulle. Matisse just hasn't played. I didn't report this on yesterday's show, but Matisse Thybulle, the Blazers announced that Matisse Thybulle would need another couple weeks. He's going to be reevaluated in 2 more weeks, still dealing with that severe ankle injury that he sustained when he was ramping back up from off-season surgery. So, he hurts his knee, gets surgery, comes back, twists his ankle bad. Sounds like a very bad ankle sprain. And he's according to the Blazers spokesperson, they indicated to me or told me, I think it's actually what they said. They just told me, no setback. That's the word. No setbacks with Matisse Thybulle. He hasn't sustained any setbacks. He just needs more time. He hasn't played. It's hard to increase your trade value when you haven't played. In theory, there's a world in which teams would value what Matisse does because he is a good and interesting defender. He is a real chaos engine. But we kind of just don't know what he's going to be like. The Blazers, when they traded for Matisse Thybulle, I think it was part of a 4-team deal, but it was essentially they gave up 2 second-round picks in exchange for Matisse Thybulle. They got him on the cheap, right? I don't think his trade value has gone up since he has been a Blazer. There was a brief period when he was shooting really well when he first got to Portland, and then the following half season where he was like really shooting well, but he struggled to shoot the ball the second half of last year and kind of brought his averages back down to closer to what his career averages have been. And then he's been hurt all year long. He has maybe some name recognition and he's not super expensive contracts or anything like that. But I don't think Matisse has a bunch of value. But I could and it's like would Matisse Thybulle play on a good team in the playoffs? Probably not because of the shooting. But I could see a world where you could say we need to, a team says we need to win 3 more games to move from 6th to 4th. Okay, let's make a push, right? Like, and whoever that might be. I would say like maybe a team in the range of like the Bucks, right? Where it's like they're not going to reach the upper echelon, but they're definitely a playoff team, and the thing that they need is to be a little bit better and as a perimeter defensive team to have a chance. Does Matisse Thybulle kind of fit that role? I would say that's like the type of team to look for, although I don't know that the Bucks have a straight across trade for the Blazers that makes a ton of sense on its own. The next name on my list is Jeremy Grant. Grant would have been higher. He would have been a tier by himself. He would have been like, hey, he makes too much money, but he's productive and he's the exact type of player teams covet. He can shoot, he can defend a little bit, he's the right size. He can fit into some off-ball roles. Like you can bring him in and have him be a secondary, tertiary guy to your already existing stars and move forward from there. Jeremy has struggled this season. He's been bad. He's shooting under 40% from the floor. And it's basically he just can't make 2s anymore. He just can't score inside the arc right now this season. I think with guys like Jeremy, and I feel the same way about Anthony Simons to some extent, and DeAndre Ayton, to be clear, it's like when you've been in the league long enough, people know what you are, right? Teams know what you are. They have 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons of data to say, like, this is what you are. It's like, okay, since you've been a starter, Anthony Simons, we've got 3.5 years of data to know exactly the type of player you are. Since for Jeremy Grant, it's like since you kind of had your breakout in Denver, we have now 5+ seasons of data on what you are. Jeremy Grant's pretty good in OKC too. I feel the same way about DA. It's like, after year 3 of DeAndre Ayton, we know what this guy is. We've seen him over the last 4 years. The graph can't go up too much. It can't go up too much. it can go down a little. It can go down a little. It can't skyrocket, right? Like, because of they kind of know what your ceiling is and they've seen you. So it's like if you're playing way outside of what the last 4 years say, you're not going to fool other teams with your trade value. But if you aren't productive, if you are struggling, and I felt this way particularly about Anthony Simons early in the year, it's like if he's valued for his offense and he's shooting 30% from three, he doesn't have as much trade value. And I feel like that about Grant right now. And he's owed over $100 million over the next 3 seasons, north of $30 million over the next 3 years on his contracts. The length of the contract is just not appealing in this climate. He hasn't been productive. He's not producing as like a $30 million a year guy. But moreover, it's like even if you're like, hey, get him out of here, bad place, weird vibes in Portland, tanking team, all that. Like get him to a place where it's competitive and you focus every day and you play games in April. Like maybe you can get more out of Jeremy Grant, but it's do you want 3 more years of Jeremy Grant? And I think that's the holdup, and that's why he's lower on my list than he would have been. And he's lower on my list than this next name is Scoot Henderson. I don't even know if I'm totally sold on this ranking, but I do think a team, and here I'll sell you on my logic here. My personal logic, although it's pretty soft, so you could probably talk me out of it pretty quickly. Scoot is significantly younger. He's under team control, right? Like it's like he'll be a restricted free when rookies come off their deal. They're restricted free agents. Like there isn't this $100 million tied into Scoot. He's a high draft pick. He makes $10 million a year. He's not nothing. He's not free, but and it balloons in year 4 once they pick him up for his fourth season. Obviously we're in year 2. We're a little ways away from that. But if you're trading for Scoot Henderson, you're thinking years, not year. It's like, there is a team out there that could say like the Scoot Henderson that we scouted 2 years ago was an elite prospect. Portland's doing it wrong. We can resuscitate this. We can be the team to rejuvenate. We can be the team to be the second draft team, the team that gets it right with a prospect that didn't work out in their first spot. I think a team could easily talk themselves into Scoot. He hasn't been very good. Full stop. Scoot Henderson has not been very good as a pro. There's been times when he's been pretty bad as a pro. But I think in terms of just like intriguing trade value, if you're going to take a flyer on someone, this is the exact type of guy. And we're not talking good teams with this. I'm just talking like the sort of other teams out there in the Blazers' relative range. If you're saying like, hey, let's strike up a deal. Oh, Scoot Henderson's available. That's a type of dude we would take a flyer on because why not? I think he's above Jeremy Grant. I got 5 more names on the list, and one that I have no idea what to do with. Join me in the third segment, and I will explain why I have no idea. Come to the third segment? Why don't you? First, though, let's talk Hungryroot. Look, meal planning takes a lot of time. Going shopping takes a lot of time. And between your work and your life and maybe trying to eat a little bit healthier as we hit the new year, you can be stressed out, or you could just straight up not have the space and time to do it. But if you check out Hungryroot, it can be a game changer. It's an easy way to eat healthy without all the stress of planning, shopping, and time management that comes with it. Hungryroot is like having a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. They take care of all of your grocery shopping, recommending meals and groceries based on your tastes and health goals, from anti-inflammatory to high protein and gluten-free options. And the best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. So I'm talking like quick, healthy meals that actually taste great, delivered right to your door. It can be a huge time saver, and it can make healthy eating so much simpler. You're gonna love Hungryroot. And for a limited time, right now, you can get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA. Don't miss out. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. The next name on my list, as we rank every Blazers player by their trade value, is Anthony Simons. Ant was struggling at the beginning of the year, and he was, for a spell, a month to begin the season, probably untradeable, right? It's like Ambry Simons is a straight up bad defensive player shooting 30% from three. Okay, that's just not a dude other teams want. He has some value in a specific role, right? Like he's probably paid like a starter, and he's more accurately a six man, right? He's paid like a starter, and he's more accurately a six man. He could start in some situations. I think labeling. I have some. And I'm a little bit annoyed by just like the broad labeling as a guy as a six man. Like he could probably start for the Magic because they have a specific team that could allow him to start, But in any case, like the sort of archetype of Ant is clearly like bench scorer, right? That's probably his best role, and in many situations that would be his role. He has somewhat limited trade viability because of his contract a little bit, and I don't even think he's crazy overpaid. I think he's like if Ant was making $19 million a year, not 25, I think he'd be eminently tradable because he'd just be easier to move. But I think in this current climate, he is a little bit harder to move just because it seems like finding teams that want to take on a $25 million salary in under the current CBA conditions. And hopefully this is just year one, and the future teams kind of iron out how this is going to look like. And we see more in general, just it's easier to make deals. Like we don't need tons of trades in every NBA season, but having the thing that limits trades be like, the contracts, like we don't want to take on the contracts because there's too much punishment, right? Like I think that's maybe bad for the league. But I don't think Ant's going to have a ton of suitors. I just think he has a limited scope, but he's been really freaking good in January, and he could shoot. He could really shoot. And there are going to be teams, as you get right down to it, that say like, what we need is one more scorer. How do we get there? What we need one more dude who can score. How do we get there? I think that is undeniably true. Orlando seems to still be the team that is like the most perfectly tailor-made to take Ambry Simons in something like a Cole Anthony and stuff type of deal. Although that might not appeal to either side in the end. We shall see. Ambry Simons is the next name on my list. The following name, I just don't know what to do with him. It's Donovan Clingan. Clingan has appeal because he's 20 years old and has obvious upside, right? Like he has obvious upside. He hasn't had the sort of sobering stretch of his run of his NBA debuts like Scoot Henderson had. It's not like immediately he had this sort of that drive the car off the lot feeling where it's like, well, this is worse. This is worth less as soon as we left the parking lot. Like Clingan has had some moments, particularly early in his rookie season, where he's like, oh yeah, that dude is a beast. Like that game early in the season against Minnesota was an eye-opening defensive performance. Since he got hurt in Houston and then he came back, he hasn't been as good. He looked a lot better after taking a night off and getting a couple days off on the road and coming back against Dallas, I believe it was. But like it's I think some of this is rookie wall, some of this is just his general conditioning. He's never played this many minutes. Maybe in general he's a big guy and the cardiovascular stuff is going to be a challenge for him. And also like he's not very good on offense, so he has some limitations there. But again, like I personally value centers to be high-level defenders first and foremost. Clingan profiles as that. Could Donovan Clingan help a team in the playoffs? No, I don't think he could play minutes in the playoffs. It's like I think he struggles too much guarding the perimeter right now, and he just is such a zero on offense that it's just like, no, I don't think he could play. I don't think he could play meaningful minutes in a playoff game today. But he has trade appeal because he's young and has real upside, right? Like I don't exactly know what to do with him. I originally had him further back on my list, and I said, no, that doesn't make sense. Like think about any team in the league if they could trade for Donovan Clingan. They like here's so many would, or at least like he would have real suitors, real appeal, because like so many teams need to get bigger and more and better in so many ways. Obviously, I don't think the Blazers aren't going to trade him. That's not none of this is like about the Blazers actually trading players. But like it is Clingan. I'm a little should Clingan be higher on this list by a couple spots? Should he be like second on this list, or should he be like significantly lower, right? Like should he be way lower because of like his current level of productivity. I don't really know what to do with him. For me, he's near the top. He's fourth on my list as we head towards the top. The next name on my list, number 3, is Rob Williams. If Rob could play 25 minutes a night, he would already be on another team, and the Blazers would have received a nice first round pick in exchange for him and all that. But he just hasn't been able to stay healthy, and he's on the right team. He is exceedingly valuable, right? Like, he's exceedingly valuable as a backup big man. It's like, that's your backup center? It's Rob freaking Williams? Oh my goodness. Like, you're all of a sudden one of the very good teams, right? Like, say he was on the Knicks. They're missing that other big to really take them to the next level. Say it was just like Rob Williams as the Knicks backup center. They're a team that could win the championship. Like, that is, it really does propel them that far because they are able to play more positive minutes with size and defense on the court and rim protection and some passing that Rob has. Obviously, the individual offense is not what you're getting Rob Williams for, but some lob dunks, et cetera, et cetera. It is the health concerns. It's the availability. How many minutes can he play in any individual game, and how many games can he play going forward? I think the Blazers will probably get real offers for Rob Williams. There's been some reporting that they don't maybe want to move off him. To me, that would be a big mistake, but I think the Blazers have been slow in trading everyone, and they've made mistakes along the way, so it wouldn't surprise me if they continue to do things that I see as mistakes. But I think Rob will have trade value. The next name on my list is... I have 3 more names on my list. My apologies. Is Deni Avdija. So I had Klingon at 5, not 4. I apologize. Is Deni Avdija. I think, I'm not sure that you get the Blazers package for Deni if you trade him right now. Like, I don't think you get 2 firsts and 2 seconds if you flip Deni right now. Just I don't think, I'd be surprised to learn if that was his value on the open market, but I don't think it's that far off. I think you're still getting a first round pick for Deni. Depending on kind of what the value is. He's been pretty good. It took him a month to get right in Portland, and now he's been pretty darn good. To be quite honest, I thought he'd be better on defense than he's been, but he is like a guy who you can pretty much pencil in right now for something like 15, 5, and 5 every night. He can pass. He can rebound. He can, he's really good at putting his head down and getting to his right hand. Deni Avdija knows what he does. He's a strong right hand driver. So what he does is strong right hand drives, right? Like, he's relentless in that way. I think he's been the Blazers on the whole. He's probably been the Blazers' best player this season. That kind of speaks maybe to the overall talent level of the Blazers as much as anything else. But, Deni is that he deserves to be on this list, and he could have been higher. I have Toumani Camara ahead of Deni because I think Toumani's archetype is easier for good teams to fit into their plan. He's not an on-ball guy. Deni, to get the most out of him, you got to give him the ball. The Blazers probably don't even give him the ball enough, right? They could stand to have a little more Deni creation stuff. He's a little turnover prone, but like, the beggars choosers with the Blazers, right? They could use more Deni help than they are hurt by what Deni doesn't do well. But like, Toumani is going to be an off-ball guy. I value his defense. I think he's a much better defensive player than Deni. Like, obviously way worse on offense, but in terms of like what teams would value, I think Toumani Camara is easier to fit into a lot of other places, whereas Deni has, like, you need to, it's like better basketball player, harder natural fit or something. It's a hard, I'm not explaining it very well, but Deni requires more on-ball usage to maximize him, where you can get the maximum out of Toumani with very little on-ball usage, which makes him an easier role player to plug into more situations. That's what I'm trying to say. And I really value Toumani's defense. He's not the elite of the elites, but he's the good of the goods, right? He's one of the very good defenders in the league. He's not going to be an all-defense team guy, but he is tracking to be someone who could mess around and get on one of those teams in the future if he continues to be at this level, and he has better defenders around him, because when he has better defenders around him, you'll appreciate more of what he does. It's kind of the nature of the beast. It's how Marcus Smart stole that Defensive Player of the Year from Rob Williams. He had good defensive players around him, and they gave it to him. I think two has real trade value. He's obviously like super cheap too. Like he's has that plays into it. Deni's contract is very cheap too. It's just more money because he's off his rookie deal, and Toumani was a second round pick. Okay, Toumani's 2, Deni's 3. 1 is Shaedon Sharpe. You knew it the whole time. I would be fascinated, and we'll never know because the Blazers, the whole point of a basketball team like the Blazers is to find Shaedon Sharps and help them grow into being the best version of Shaedon Sharp, right? A wing of, a 6'5", can create his own shot from 3 levels, as a budding passer, the type of scoring athlete every team covets. That's what Shaedon Sharp is growing into. He's not quite there yet. He still has some warts. The defense is still a long way away. I do think, and I mentioned this on yesterday's show, I don't think Shaedon Sharp, we're closing in on 3 weeks at least, if not more, where I don't think aggression has been Shaedon Sharp's problem. I don't think there's been a game in 3 weeks where I've been like, I wish Shaedon Sharp was more aggressive. When he's struggled recently, it's just because he hasn't made shots, not because he hasn't taken them. I think he's shaken that off, and that's really good to see. That's part of his growth. Even if the three-pointer isn't going in at a really high level yet, just like, he knows what they need from him every night, and he's given to him. Hey, you got to go shoot the ball. Like, we need you to play like one of our best offensive players, if not our best offensive player, every single minute you're on the court. And Shaedon Sharp has bought into. He's bought into what they need from him, and he's done that a whole bunch more. I mean, maybe some of that is like no Jeremy Grant for 2 weeks, and it's been easy to do that because there isn't the deferring to someone who likes to shoot a lot. I'd be fascinated to know what Shaedon Sharp's sort of trade value around the league is. Certainly, he's more valuable to the Blazers than to trading him. But would another team trade 2 firsts for Shaedon Sharp? Or is that like homer nonsense coming from me, right? Like, or are you saying into you're in headphones, or you just like pulled over on the side of the road listening to this in your car, and you're like, 2 firsts, Mike? How dare you insult him? He's at least worth 5. I don't know. Like, is he Mikal Bridges in a very specific situation? I don't think that's the type of player he is right now. He certainly is very valuable. Like I said, much more valuable to the Blazers than as a trade piece. But I'm fascinated by it. I think he's the most valuable trade asset because of the combination of his youth and his skills. And he's gonna, he'll be under team control. People are really talking a bunch about a contract extension. I don't know if Shaedon Sharp's people or the Blazers. Obviously, the Blazers probably will. They'll say like, "How about we'll give you $20 million a year and you'll be cool with it, right?" I don't know that they'll reach an extension this summer. Right? That's a conversation for another day. But like, if they don't, he'll enter restricted free agency, and they'll just let the market dictate exactly what Shaedon Sharp is worth, and they can keep him. There is like no flight risk or anything. If the Blazers want Shaedon Sharp on the team, he will be on the team for freaking 6 more seasons. That's how this works. If they want him to hang around, they can make sure he hangs around by giving him as much money as possible. Like, he's not a max guy right now. He's not trending towards that yet. He could, and maybe it's in his best interest to play forward and become a max guy, and then you're like, yeah, he is actually a 5 first-round pick type of trade asset, Mike. You're an idiot. But right now, he is merely the Blazers' best trade asset. That's my list. If you got yours, put it in the YouTube comment section below. Tell your friends about the program. And we'll do this again tomorrow. Blazers play the Nets on Tuesday evening. You're listening to Tuesday, January 14th show, and they play the Nets this evening in a battle of 2 teams that don't really care to win, but the Nets have committed to it more aggressively recently. We'll recap everything you need to know about that show and Wednesday's program. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.